Neurofatigue can be a bear to deal with, and it's a complex issue to treat. It's caused not only by the actual brain injury itself, but also by the healing process that the brain is trying to go through. It takes a lot of energy for the brain to try and repair itself. So, today I want to walk you through 7 strategies that you can implement to try and improve your neurofatigue. The first tip is to move more. And I know that sounds counterintuitive, but fatigue is actually made worse when we're sedentary. Fatigue leads to more fatigue, and that just turns into this vicious cycle where the less active we are, the more fatigued we feel. But the more fatigued we feel, the less active we want to be, and so on and so on. I know that getting started to move more when you're already starting from a fatigued state can be really hard to do. But keep in mind, it doesn't mean that you have to have this 30-minute structured exercise program that you do every day. It might just mean that maybe you take a short walk around your house or just out in your neighborhood if you have that capability. If you're not able to walk, maybe you do a little bit more around the house. Can you wipe down counters or dust off shelves or even sweep while you're sitting? It might also mean that you try getting back to things that you've enjoyed that maybe you haven't done in a while, like practicing your casting for fishing or getting back into the garden. The second thing to do is look at your quality and your quantity of sleep. Are you sleeping around 7+ hours a night, but you still wake up feeling unrefreshed? Or do you snore a lot? Or maybe your partner tells you that you snore a lot. If you ever wake up gasping or choking in the middle of the night, then it's probably time to have a conversation with your doctor. The culprit could potentially be obstructive sleep apnea, which has a much higher prevalence in stroke survivors, around 23 to 70%. Versus 4 to 24% in the general population. So that's quite a big discrepancy. Obstructive sleep apnea is a physical obstruction in the airway that may be due to a constriction of throat muscles. But it can lead to daytime fatigue, sleepiness, and cognitive decline. If your doctor thinks that obstructive sleep apnea may be the culprit, they'll likely order a sleep study to be done to actually make sure that's the underlying problem. If it is, they may want to try you on a CPAP machine, APAP, or BiPAP machine, which helps to put pressure into your airway to keep it open. So hopefully, if that is the underlying problem and you get the treatment for it, you'll have less fatigue during the day because you're getting a better night's sleep. The third tip is to watch your mood. Just like moving more and fatigue influence one another, depression and fatigue are the same way. Often, if you're feeling depressed, that can lead you to also feel more fatigued. And if you are fatigued, that can often lead to depression. Post-stroke depression is unfortunately a pretty common issue occurring in about a third of stroke survivors. So if you're experiencing significant fatigue, check in with your mood too. You may want to ask yourself if you've been feeling down lately. Have you been less motivated to do things? Are seemingly simple things hard to do, like getting out of bed? And are things that maybe once made you happy not doing it for you anymore? If that sounds familiar and you have access, reach out to a doctor or a mental health counselor. And if not, at least reach out to a friend and tell someone how you're feeling. If you can treat the underlying mood issue, you may see improvements in your fatigue. All right, this may seem like a no-brainer, but I'm going to mention it anyway. Look at your medications. Check the side effects. Do any of them have depression, fatigue, sleepiness, or insomnia listed on the side effects? If so, that is time probably for a conversation with your doctor to advocate for yourself. Tell your doctor about the fatigue that you're experiencing and ask if they think changing or going off or doing something to your medication regimen, especially the medications that have those side effects, could potentially help with your fatigue. Just for safety, make sure you don't mess with your medications until you've got your doctor's approval first. Mindfulness has turned into this buzzword that's associated with granola eating hippies. But at its core, it's meant to be a practice of non-judgmental awareness of what's going on in the present moment. There was a 2016 study published in the Frontiers of Psychology journal that actually found that mindfulness-based interventions help to reduce fatigue in stroke survivors, traumatic brain injury survivors, and people with multiple sclerosis. The researchers weren't completely sure why the mechanism of mindfulness worked, but they thought that it might be perhaps using mindfulness as a healthy coping strategy versus using other unhealthy coping strategies could help to reduce fatigue. So if you're feeling stressed out or anxious, switching to a healthy coping strategy like mindfulness may be able to help reduce your fatigue. You may not immediately go to food when you think about fatigue, but it plays a big role in how we feel, especially if it's a food that has a high glycemic index. The glycemic index is basically a scale that looks at how many carbohydrates a food has, and then how that food impacts our blood sugar, particularly how quickly does it raise blood sugar. Foods with a high glycemic index raise our blood sugar quickly and often result in a crash shortly thereafter. Foods with a high glycemic index include things you've heard before, like white rice, white bread, cakes, cookies, preserved foods, and things like dried fruits. So instead of pulling out a sweet or something that's really preserved, try going for more natural foods that might be higher in fiber and protein. But this does not mean that you have to cut carbohydrates completely out of your diet. Carbs are good in moderation. You just want to look for ways to create a better balance between what you're eating. Of course, include as many vegetables, whole grains, and some fruits in your diet as you can. The last tip I have to improve neurofatigue is to reduce decisions. There's a type of fatigue called decision fatigue that can also play off of neurofatigue. Decision fatigue happens when we have to make a lot of decisions in a short amount of time. Now, I'm not talking about like huge life-changing decisions like who should I marry, but I'm talking about decisions that may be seemingly mundane, like what should I wear today? What am I going to have for lunch? And do I need to go to the store today? Making some of these decisions ahead of time can give your brain a little space to breathe. Maybe you're like my husband and you decide to wear a black shirt every day of your life. That one's not for me, but it works for him. Whereas for me, I like to plan out my meals, especially dinners, ahead of time. So when I go to the store, I know what I'm going to buy and I know what I'm going to make for dinner every night. Regardless of how you strategize, reducing the amount of decisions that you have to make in a day can help to decrease some of that cognitive load, which can impact how much neurofatigue you experience on a day-to-day basis. All right, everyone, that's it for today. Have you found any strategies that help with your neurofatigue? Let me know in the comments. And remember to subscribe to my channel if you'd like to keep getting content like this, and hit the bell for notifications so you stay up to date on when I post new videos. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.